o'clock, and you are welcome to start the meeting whenever you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the South Dakota State Rail Board. Roll call, please.
Greg Carmen,
Present.
Scott Lockwood,
Present.
Jack Nelson,
Present.
Steve Scharnweber,
Here.
Ralph Schmidt,
Present.
Jeff Burkett.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Carrie. All right. So at this time, I'll move on to considerations of conflicts of interest. If anybody has a conflict that appears on the agenda for today's meeting, please bring it up. If something does come up during the meeting that you realize you do have a conflict, at that point, please bring it up. Are there any conflicts of interest today? Okay, hearing none, we'll move. Attached today were the minutes for the February 25th meeting. Any discussion on the minutes? Any changes to the minutes from the February 25th meeting?
Hey, Jeff, this is Scott.
Hey, Scott.
I don't know, it might be a problem, but on page 3, the bottom full paragraph says that we will rebid weed control on the Napa to Platte line and bring bids to the board at the next meeting for approval. So it's only been 3 weeks since the last meeting, so I was wondering, is this statement true?
Mr. Chair, this is Joel. It's actually on your agenda. Jack's going to brief you and ask for consideration on this topic here in a few minutes.
Okay, that's what I need to hear, Joel. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Scott. Any other questions or changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from the February 25th meeting. Jeff?
Okay, I have a motion to approve from Scott. Do I have a second?
Well, I'll second it, Jeff.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, vote.
Carmen,
Aye.
Lockwood,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Scharnweber, Schmidt,
Aye.
Burkett,
Aye.
I have a feeling Scharnweber was that beep that fell off.
So,
Is it still fine that he seconded it, Carla?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
are we? Do we need to wait for him or?
Mr. Scharnweber, would that be you?
That would be me.
Perfect.
Wrong button.
Did you want to ask him to vote, Carrie?
Would you like to vote on the minutes to approve?
I approve.
Perfect.
Thank you. February 25th minutes have been approved. At this time, I would like to move on to public input. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, but I'm going to open it up for public opinion or public input. Have any public input this morning? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to Carla for consideration of amendment to the Slover and Loftus agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Carla Engel, Chief Legal Counsel. Today I'm requesting that you authorize increasing the legal services agreement by $50,000. Over the last year, we've had a significant amount of work that requires expertise in railroad law and Surface Transportation Board filings. We've had the termination of the lease and modified certificate of our operator on the Napa line. We've had the sale of the Yale line and the Woolsey interchange, which is in the process of being finalized. We had the request for proposals regarding the Napa line and assistance with evaluation of those proposals, and we've had the rail banking of the Napa line. So a significant amount of legal work that we've received from the Slover Loftus firm. I do want to let the railroad board know that John Lesueur reminds me every time I talk to him about his invoices that the South Dakota Department of Transportation enjoys the greatest discount in his standard rate. So we pay about exactly $200 an hour less than his regular clients, and also receive a significant discount for Daniel Jaffe, who assists him. So I'm here today requesting an increase in the legal services contract maximum amount of $50,000, an increase of $50,000, and authorization to amend the legal services agreement in that regard.
Thank you, Carla. Any questions for Carla? Carla, just one question. Is that through the end of the year then, in your opinion, or are we looking longer or shorter for that?
So the current agreement expires at the end of this year, at the end of 2026. And I think this will be sufficient to get us to the end of the year, barring unforeseen circumstances. So I try to be conservative in requesting additional authorization, but I think that'll get us where we need to be.
Thank you, Carla. Any additional questions for Carla? I heard somebody there. Nope, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the $50,000 increase to the Slover and Loftus legal service agreement?
This is Greg Carmen. I'll make that motion to increase our legal fee fund by $50,000.
Okay. I have a motion from Greg. Do I have a second?
Lockwood will provide a second.
Okay. I got a motion and a second to increase the Slover and Loftus legal agreement by $50,000. Any discussion? Terry, did we lose you?
Jeff, I think we lost you.
Can you hear me, Carrie?
Now I can.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Carmen?
Aye.
Lockwood?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Scharnweber?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Burkett?
Aye. Motion passes. Anything else, Carla, today?
No, thank you.
Okay. So now we'll move on to the Secretary of Transportation, Joel Jund, on the Secretary's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's a very short report, but I would want to definitely talk about the states. Well, we may go back to the federal side. So really not anything significant to report there. We're still waiting for the notice of funding opportunity, as we've discussed numerous times here the last number of months relative to our special transportation circumstance grants. That notice has not come out, and we'll just have to be patient and consider and wait for that. On the state side, the state legislature did approve DOT's budget for fiscal year 27, although they did not approve the governor's recommended budget. And I want to specifically talk about the increase that was requested for budget authority for the railroad capital improvement line item, which was an increase of $40.6 million. They did approve an additional $30.6 million, so that will give us a total budget authority of just over $44 million. This budget authority is needed for us to be able to administer all of those STC grants that we currently have under contract. And as we've discussed in the past meetings, we're still waiting for that NOFO to come out here from Federal Railroad Administration. So really, depending upon the timing of the current grants that we have, as well as when our contractors will be doing work, finishing up work for 26 here and what might eventually overflow into 27, we'll just have to see where we're at from a projection of what we need for budget authority. Worst case scenario here is if we are forecasting that we need that additional $10 million, we'll have to request from the legislators that they go back to that prior, what we call it a prior year, which would be for fiscal year 27, to request that additional budget authority so that we can continue with those contracts and make the expenditures that are needed relative to those SCC projects. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all that I have, but would answer any questions relative to that topic there.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions for Joel on that topic? Okay, we'll move on. Next, I have Jack Dockett on the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Railroad Board. Jack Dockett, Air Rail and Transit Program Manager. My first request is for the consideration of weed spraying contracts. This is for 2 different railroads. The first one is the section on the MRC that the DOT is the sponsor for, which ranges from Kadoka to Rapid City. And the second railroad is for the entire Napa to Platte Railroad. For the first one, the MRC, our office is proposing to hire Pennington County to spray from Interior to Rapid City. This would be just within the Pennington County area. The contract with the county is estimated to be approximately $7,200. And what the county does is they basically spot spray with 4-wheelers. It's been very successful. We do it annually, and we wish to continue to do this in Pennington County. The remainder of the spraying needs on the MRC are from Interior to Kadoka and the entire Napa to Platte line. The total areas, including those 2 pieces, is 105 miles, and with an average width of approximately 50 feet in the railway, we're looking at approximately 640 acres that need to be sprayed. Our office reached out to 8 different companies for quotes to accomplish the work. We only had 2 responses, and the most competitive response with the best price was from Dakota Helicopters. Their estimate was $76.86 per acre. This includes chemical, includes mobilization, everything that you need to get them going. Dakota Helicopters is also the same company who sprayed our rail banked areas for us in 2023. They did a great job in 2023. It will be a little bit different in 2026 though, because we have never sprayed Ravinia to Napa Junction in the past. That was always performed by our leaseholder. So it'll be a little bit different from what we're used to. When you do the math, the 640 acres times the $76.86 total estimate comes to $49,190. But since the Ravinia to Napa is an entirely new area for us, I would like to give a little more cushion in that amount, just because I think there are some areas through that part of the railway that are wider than 50 feet. So we could potentially have a small cost overrun, which is why I'm proposing the contract be limited to $60,000 with Dakota Helicopters. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, just to recap, the request is a joint powers agreement with Pennington County Weed Board for control of noxious weeds on the Mitchell to Rapid City rail line, located in the railroad right-of-way between Maple Street Yard in Rapid City and Interior, South Dakota, in the amount of $7,200 for the year 2026. The second is a request for an agreement with Dakota Helicopters Incorporated for spraying service to control noxious weeds on the remaining rail-banked portion of the MRC from Interior to Kadoka and the entire Napa to Platte rail line. Dakota Helicopters Incorporated quoted DOT the price of $76.86 per acre. The total agreement for spraying services would be capped at $60,000. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Jack. Any questions for Jack?
This is John Weber. I have one question. The Dakota Helicopters, they follow up with four-wheelers and stuff like that? Initial spraying, I would assume, was with helicopters, aerial, and then do they follow up?
No, it is strictly helicopter service.
Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, just to add a little context to that, Steve, if that's all right, I did ask DSU to talk about the spraying services provided by helicopter on that rail line and the chemicals that they are proposing to provide. And they were really confident with the method of helicopter and the chemical. After talking through with those experts, I feel pretty confident that they'll get a pretty good product. If that was one of your concerns, Steve.
That was my concern. Thanks for that info, Jack.
You bet.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Jack. Any other questions for Jack?
Hey, Jack, this is Scott.
Hi, Scott. Go ahead.
Okay, so you were saying the general width of the right-of-way is 50 feet?
Yes.
You mean 50 feet either side of the track?
Well, yes, I think it is, but it also, it can be impeded, but I'll try to paint a better picture of this for you. Generally speaking, the entire width can be 50 feet, or most of the time is 50 feet on each side of the track. Typically, we're only able to spray a 50-foot width on the railroad because of a lot of different things. A lot of trees could be in there, or simply the railway is only 25 feet each side of the track. So we figure the average that the helicopter can spray is a 50-foot width. Does that help, or does that make sense?
Yeah, that perfect sense, Jack.
As well, there may be agricultural, you don't want to go too wide and damage.
Yeah, and that's totally
Cropland.
true. And we do have some folks that encroach on the railroad right away a little bit that we try to just help to stay away from their crops and their animals. So the average width of spray is 50 feet, not necessarily the average right of way is 50 feet. So sorry about that confusion.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Well, so what's the timeline for this spraying with Dakota Helicopter?
They're proposing to complete it by the end of May.
So Jack, this would be a one-time, do it in the spring.
Yes.
And if we need follow-up in the fall, we might have to come back to the board with that.
It's possible.
Hopefully we get a good kill.
Yeah, if history repeats itself from 2023 with Dakota Helicopters, we will not need to return in the fall.
Scott, did that answer everything for you?
Yes, it did, Jeff. Thanks.
Any other questions for Jack? Okay, so what is the will of the board? Anybody there?
Okay, I'll make a motion. Okay, so there's two separate line items here. Spraying noxious weeds interior to Rapid City with Pennington County in the amount of $7,200. I make a motion to accept that bid. And also make a motion to approve the bid from Dakota Helicopter Incorporated to spray Kadoka 2 interior and also the entirety of the Napa Platte Railroad.
So that is all one motion, right, Scott?
If that's allowable, yes, I would like to make that as one motion.
Mr.
Carla, are
Chairman,
you good with that?
maybe up to the $60,000 to add that to your motion.
Up to
Up to-
60,000?
For the Dakota helicopter.
Price per acre too.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll add the capped at $60,000 for the Dakota helicopter proposal.
So I got a motion for Pennington County, I got a motion from Scott for Pennington County, 7,200, and then up to 60,000 for Dakota helicopter. Do I have a second?
Second by Schmidt.
Okay, I got a motion and I have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carmen,
Aye.
Lockwood,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Scharnweber,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Burkett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Jack. And I think you have another one with the maintenance agreements
Yes.
planned.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second agenda item I have for you is a consideration of state-owned railroad maintenance plans. And since I'm talking, I'll just go first. I'm gonna present the 2026 Napa to Platte Railroad Maintenance Plan. There's three main items. The first one is that noxious weed control that we just talked about. And again, they're expected to complete that by the end of May, is what the Dakota Helicopters have expressed to us. The second one is tie cleanup, and that is the DOT will be coordinating efforts for tie and other track material cleanup with the Yankton region at DOT. They're going to clean those ties up and some other junk there and take them to the Yankton Transfer Center for disposal. This is all located within the city of Tabor, and how that'll work for, I guess, billing is the services from Yankton DOT will be billed back to the railroad office through the, I think it's called the admin fund, is that right? Kelly, thank you. So, and then the third item would be culvert maintenance. The DOT will inspect the culverts and have them cleaned out if necessary. We don't know the cost of this work yet, but it'll be based on the inspection findings and if we need to do any cleaning or minor repairs of those culverts to make sure the water is traveling through the right of way appropriately. And with that, I'd take any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Jack? Jack, just a question for me. Do we need to approve anything on the tie cleanup of the culverts? Or will that be to come?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jack? Okay, thank you, Jack.
And then the second state-owned railroad maintenance plan is for the Britton line. It's provided by DMVW. I believe Mark Trottier, or maybe another member from the DMVW who's on the line would like to present this.
Yes, this is Clint with the NBW Railroad. in our 2026 maintenance plan, we're planning on dumping roughly 2,000 ton of ballast. Maybe more, maybe less is needed. The estimate cost for that was $62,500, and we'll spot tamp and radiolate all that. Maintenance ties, we plan on installing 200 to 400 new ties behind the surfacing crew. Estimate cost is around $15,000 to $30,000. And last year we did replace roughly 800 ties. We did 228 on the main line, and we did 550 in Amherst. We kind of rehabbed that siding there. And then Amherst and Claremont, we did a bunch of miscellaneous ties. And that was around 65,000 that we put into that last year. And we'll do our annual bridge inspections. Estimate cost on that is $8,300. We have been replacing deck bridge ties and stuff along the bridges, and we have riprap underneath some of the bridges. Got about 7,000 into that for last year. And we'll do our spraying. We'll do 2 applications of pre and post emergence. And last year we actually did 3 applications. We did a fall pre-emergent. And if we have to do that again this year, we'll do that. The estimate cost on that is around $40,000. And if it doesn't do a good enough kill, we'll be brush cutting, and we did end up brush cutting last fall also. Then we'll do our yearly foot inspections and our weekly and monthly track patrols and walk the yards. And then we'll check culvert conditions. We replaced probably 6 culverts last year along the main line. And I guess we did also on the James River, the erosion was getting pretty significant. So we dumped 1,800 ton of riprap and placed it along the James River. And that was around $115,000 for the riprap. Kind of sums up what I have for the maintenance plan.
Any questions for the DMVW maintenance plan?
Well, of course, I have a question. Clint, when's the last time you ran a rail detector over the line?
We have never ran a rail detector across the line.
Okay, no plans then for 2026?
No, there's no plans for it, but we still could do it. I can get a hold of the guy that does the rail detecting, but we have no plans right now as for doing it.
Okay, apparently service failed rails are at such a low level, there's no need.
Yeah, and if it's class 1 or 2, it's not recommended. It's not a mandatory deal, but I mean, we have on other lines we have done some rail testing in the past.
Okay, thanks, Clint.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joel. I wonder if that wouldn't be a good thing to wait until after the STC grant is done.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea to wait for that, and we can do it all in one shot.
Thank you, Joel. Scott, did that answer everything you had?
Yeah, I was just looking at some historical stuff here, and the RCP&E maintenance plan each year had a rail detector between Huron and Yale at a cost of about $3,500 to $4,000. Sees a lot less traffic than the Britain line.
We can put it in our future plan.
Scott, are you okay with waiting until after the project is done, or would you like to see something different?
No, absolutely. We can certainly wait till after the project is complete.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Any other questions? Jeff, back to you. Jack, are you there?
Yes.
Or did I
Mr. Chairman,
lose?
Sorry. That's it for me.
Do we need to take a do we have to vote on those?
It's a consideration item, so.
I believe you have to take a vote on the maintenance, that you agree with the maintenance plan?
We typically
Okay.
approve that maintenance plan based on what was presented.
Okay. So should we do them individually?
Not necessarily, according to Carla's head
No,
count.
you don't have to take them individually unless you want to.
Okay. What's the will of the board on the maintenance plan?
Okay, Jeff, Scott will make a motion to approve the 2026 maintenance plan for the Napa to Platte Railroad and also the maintenance plan for the DMVW for 2026.
Thank you, Scott. I got a motion by Scott. Do I have a second?
This is Greg Carbon. I'll do a second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the maintenance plan? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carmen,
Aye.
Lockwood,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Scharnweber,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Burkett.
Aye. Okay, the maintenance plans are approved. Thank you. As seeing nothing else on the agenda, is there anything additional to bring to the board today? Hearing nothing, South Dakota State Rail Board meeting. So we are adjourned.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
You are listening to South Dakota Public Broadcasting's live webcast service on the South Dakota Network. More information at sd.net. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Links to live events and their archives are available at sd.net. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Follow us on Twitter at SDNet for announcements about what's coming up. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Download the SDNet app to your mobile device and listen wherever you are. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Links to live events and their archives are available at sd.net. You are listening to South Dakota Public Broadcasting's live webcast service on the South Dakota Network. More information at sd.net. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Links to live events and their archives are available at sd.net. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Follow us on Twitter at SDNet for announcements about what's coming up. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Download the SDNet app to your mobile device and listen wherever you are. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Links to live events and their archives are available at sd.net. You are listening to South Dakota Public Broadcasting's live webcast service on the South Dakota Network. More information at sd.net. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Links to live events and their archives are available at sd.net. Thank you for listening to the South Dakota Network, a service of SDPB. Follow us on Twitter at SDNet for announcements about what's coming up.